This posed photo of these excessively dressed, dignified soldiers will not grace you with an understanding of war. The war movies and video games that youth are obsessed with cannot capture the authenticity of combat, the legitimacy of war. The unvarnished truth is instead found embedded in the workings of the soldier. Mediums such as poems, letters, songs, and diary entries, all part of the endeavour of informing the future generations to come of how unglorified and merciless conflict can be. Our shiny spectacles of war, deliberately designed to be appealing, cannot be regarded as true representations of conflict. The war movies and flashy games, like Call of Duty, all glorified in the name of profit, will never be as valuable as the real voices of our soldiers. Contemporary generations' understanding of war should be one that remembers the tragedy and ultimately a preventable sacrifice, not a time to disproportionately idolize and look back on with such misplaced pride. The opportunity to disassociate from the glossy interpretations of war often reside within the sophisticated lines of our little-known poems. Poetic expression and heartfelt writings from the soldiers themselves hold to account untold hardships that cannot be captured from behind the cinematic lens of a camera. Alan E. McIntosh, a soldier who served in World War I, wrote the poem Recruiting. It is a bitter poem, taking aim at the propaganda and lies that convinced innocent young men to believe in the glory of selflessly dying without a second thought. They thought they didn't have a choice. If they did not enlist, it would be their greatest shortcoming, allowing others to die in their place. Overwhelming pressure, applied by the public's scrutinizing gaze, could not be evaded, as taking your risk of life and death insinuated more than just a role in conflict. If you neglected to go and help to swell the names in the casualty lists, were you prepared to confront the inevitable expulsion awaiting back home? And with the soldiers' deployment, bringing the immediate cease to the deceptive dishonor of being collectively rallied as heroes, they await the arrival of more poor devils like yourselves, waiting to be killed by you. Undeniably, wartime recruitment occurs without independent choice, either through pressure or through deception. War strips you of your opportunity for autonomy and self-governance. They all serve time in khakis. Whether it be camouflaged in the jungle, huddled in an overflowing trench, or in a bunker, waiting for that final shell to drop. That would be their final resting place, alive or dead. Because the reality of combat is that the soldier never truly deserts their grueling and formidable plight. Forever in solitary confinement, because they cannot psychologically return home to their plastic world they thought they once knew. Don Walker's lyrics in the song Khe-Sanh captured this reality for these damaged soldiers. Their soulless, hollow frames are shipped back home to the lucky land, expected to rapidly reintegrate and automatically assimilate into the fast suburban chains. An endless downward spiral of poor mental health and suffering ensue, since their story of sacrifice is only tolerated by someone just as damaged as themselves. The returned soldiers' continual struggle, something only other vets could understand. The manipulation of war has reached a degree where it has become an unrecognizable, misguided fantasy, purposely portrayed by the media. Whereas literature does not meddle in the messy politics and put up a show-worthy front to attract attention. It drags up the pain repeatedly and vividly presents the dynamic of combat in an uncensored address, just as the soldiers had to endure it. Ineffable experiences can only be justifiably expressed via literature. Because how can you claim to understand the uncertainty that Lieutenant Duncan Chapman faced in the Gallipoli trenches without hearing it directly? A letter dated July 8th, 1915. As our boat sneaked on in the early morning light, many of us wondered who would be the first to go. Without literature, you are not experiencing war. We are indulging in the media's delusional imagination that we as a collective society have let insidiously creep into our gullible minds. We should embrace the opportunity to commemorate war with the inclusion of our soldiers' legacies. In fact, if you can do one thing to recognize our soldiers, I ask that before the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month, that you read into and research the reality that our soldiers endured. And I assure you that the last post will have a new significance and will hold more meaning than ever before, lest we forget.